Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Today, Bistra Dimitrova from Kronos and Scott Smith from Automation Services are going to show us how to take your T&E audits from ho-hum to awe-inspiring. Bistra is going to show us how her department approaches T&E audits and the best practices that they have developed over the years. Scott Smith will be demonstrating some idea features that will take your audits to the next level. This webcast is worth 1 hour of NASBA CPE. In order to receive CPE credit, you must be logged in for the entire hour, respond to the 3 polling questions, and complete the brief evaluation at the end of the webcast. We are recording this session. The session slides and recording will be sent to you via email, most likely tomorrow, and qualifying attendees will receive their CPE certificates within the week. If you have any questions, please type them in the question box on the right side of your screen. We will answer them at the end of the webcast. Welcome, and I am going to turn control over to Bistra. Bistra, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Bistra Dimitrova, and I'm the Manager of Internal Audit at Kronos Incorporated. And today I'm going to share with you our new and enhanced T&E audit approach. With this new approach, we've moved away from sampling to heavy data-driven risk analysis approach. And although I'm going to talk about T&E, we're using the same approach for most of our audits. So I'm going to talk about how we use IDEA in our audits, and at the end, Scott is going to demonstrate some of the useful features of IDEA. What I'm going to talk today is our first step at auditing T&E with IDEA, and this approach goes a few years back. And we have updated some of the procedures since then. However, I do think that what I'm going to show you is still relevant today. So who is Kronos? We are the global leader in workforce management solutions that enable organizations to control labor costs, minimize compliance risks, and improve workforce productivity. Many organizations in more than 100 countries are using our solutions such as time and attendance, scheduling, absence management, and labor analytics applications. Our workforce is vastly dispersed, and we have large sales and professional service teams, which means that we have lots of T&E. We have more than 30,000 expense reports submitted by thousands of employees, and this is just in one fiscal year, which translates over hundreds of thousands individual expense lines.
I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll. Again, you must respond to all 3 of the polls in order to receive CPE credit. The first poll question is, which best describes your current T&E program? Not defined, not deployed, deployed, embraced, or automated and continuous. I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds to respond, and then we will get back with the presentation. All right, so I'm going to give you guys another 5 seconds, and then I will go ahead and close. All right, thank you for participating.
So how did we audit our T&E before we discovered IDEA? So we used a sample-based audit approach. We will run a report for T&E reports submitted in a given period and randomly select 25 to 50 reports for review, trying to find a needle in the haystack. We couldn't find a needle in the haystack. Our results were mostly minor policy violations. We didn't get any serious response from management or the audit committee. With IDEA, we adopted holistic audit approach that we executed on 100% of the population, and we found the needle in the haystack, or in our case, the needles. We identified multiple fraudulent reimbursements that resulted in strong disciplinary actions and hard dollar recoveries. We got the attention of the audit committee, which resulted in significant change in investment. We now have a T&E system that's one of the best in its class, and the confidence in the internal audit team abilities skyrocketed. So a few years back, we had a legacy T&E system that had poor controls, poor reporting, ineffective fraud detection. We didn't have any T&E monitoring process, no any auxiliary data such as travel bookings and credit card data. Our policy wasn't linked to the T&E process. IDEA helped us integrate the auxiliary data, so we were able to pull the data for the travel bookings and the credit card information and make sure that our data is accurate and complete, identify fraud indicators, and design and implement tests that were repeatable so we can run them as many times as we wanted. And the results of these tests were actionable. Actually, we were able to act upon them. In a nutshell, what we did is we took our T&E environment and enhanced it with IDEA so that we had an audit approach that was efficient and effective. We had a custom reporting, effective fraud detection, and near real-time monitoring and reliable information. So how did we start? First, we obtained initial understanding of the data from the T&E application. We did this with IDEA. We ran few summarizations tests on different cuts of data such as T&E spend per employee, spend per category, cash versus corporate credit cards. We ran the duplicate key tests from IDEA, reviewed some of the T&E expense reports. We were trying to understand the data and identify high-risk activity. And some of the risks that we considered were company-specific. So we considered non-compliance. Well, they're not company-specific. I think everybody should consider these risks. So it's non-compliance, fraudulent submission of expenses, and low visibility into the cash expenses. So our preliminary results indicated that we had some duplicate expenses, we had excessive use of cash, but although we had corporate credit cards, the expense reports were submitted late. We had a fair amount of expenses that were submitted right below the receipt thresholds. And we had some inconsistencies in imported data from the credit card company. So once we identified our problem areas, we needed to design tests in IDEA to address each of these focus areas. So we designed and implemented tests to isolate the so-called risk-based population. And our tests were both statistical and fraud-based. Some of the tests included potential duplicate expenses that were submitted within 19 days apart. Why 19 days? Because 19 days works for us. For some of you may not work 19 days. For some of you may be like a different period, maybe 30 days. We did specific tests around dependent expenses, such as identifying car rental fuel expenses without having corresponding car rental, or flights with different departure and arrival dates with no hotel between them. We were looking for unmatched credit card transactions, excessive use of cash, excessive mileage, excessive submission of expenses right below the receipt required threshold, and some statistical like employees with high spend above the average per employee, per category, and so forth. We combined the results of all of these tests, I think we had about a dozen tests, into a risk-based dashboard. Into a T&E risk dashboard, and purpose of this dashboard was to identify the risky employees and the related focus area. What I mean by this is, for instance, Norman Gordon ranks #1 in fuel rank. So when I open his expense reports, I'm going to specifically look for car rental fuel receipts without having car rental expense. Jamie Robinson down in the bottom ranks #1 for potential duplicates, which means that when I open her expense reports, I'm going to look for duplicate expenses. And the same situation is for Tina Hammond.
All right, let me launch the second poll. Our second poll says, which best describes your audit committee and our management's response to your current T&E audit reports? Ho-hum, not that interesting. Only interested in major findings. Somewhat interested, but there's room for improvement. Interested or not applicable. Again, you must respond to all of the polls in order to receive CPE credit. I will leave this up here for about 30-ish seconds, and hopefully everybody will have a chance to respond. And just a reminder, I've gotten a couple questions about this. We will be sending out the slides and the recording following the webcast. So they should go out. If not today, they will definitely go out tomorrow. And CPE certificates will be sent within the week. I'm going to give a few more seconds, and then I will turn back to Bistra. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Bistra now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. So IDEA allowed us to keep slicing and dicing the T&E population and create the so-called risk funnel. So we started with the full population, which is over 2,000 employees with around 300,000 individual expense list. And through the various tests, we kept narrowing the population until we reached only around 50 to 100 employees with maybe only 2,000 expense reports. And this represented our risk-based population. And employees at the bottom of the funnel were subject to 100% auditing. We were also able to provide close to 100% assurance that the employees outside of the risk-based population hadn't submitted any material, submitted for reimbursements any material fraudulent expenses. And the beauty of all this is that our tests were repeatable, so we could do the same risk funnel on different cuts of data on different years, so we could run these tests multiple times. And actually the same risk funnel we are applying in most of our audits. So we are creating similar risk funnels for audits, for journal entries, for PCARD, T&E. I mean, the methodology is the same, it's just the tests are different. And with the data analytics approach, we've moved away from the sampling. So these 50 to 100 employees were selected and they were reviewed for a particular reason. So we didn't really, I mean, although we've looked at 2,000 expense reports, we didn't look at all of the individual expense lines. We were looking for specific reason, whether there was dependence, like whether there was like car rental fuel without having car rental against, or whether there was duplicate expense or unmatched credit card transactions. We knew exactly what we are looking for, so we didn't look at every transaction for these 2,000 expense reports. So with the data analytics, we've moved away from sampling, and now our conversation with management doesn't start with we randomly selected and reviewed 25 selections and found that 2 of them didn't have the proper support or authorization, and we believe that there is a problem and we extrapolate the exposure to be this much. Our conversation right now starts, we have examined 100% of the population and we've confirmed that 30% of the transactions or so haven't been properly authorized. And we are 95 to 100% sure that the exposure is this much. And when you have the data in hand, it's much easier to make your point across. Now, the risk funnel that I just described takes a lot of time and some advanced skills, some advanced knowledge of IDEA. For those of you who have just started using IDEA or don't have the time to devote to create a risk funnel from scratch, there is a T&E audit solution bundle which is available from Automation. And the bundle includes 22 tests that will help you understand your data and identify focus area. And I mean, it's very easy to run. And some of the tests are frequent traveler validation, identify employees who have traveled more than X number of days in any given month, frequent weekend travelers, so we want to know who travels frequently on Saturday or Sunday, segregation of duties violation. I think this is very good test. We really want to see who actually submits and approves their own travel expenses. And some of the key takeaways, adopting a holistic approach is key to successful data mining analysis. Always make sure that the data is accurate and complete. I mean, I cannot stress this enough, because if you don't have the right data, your results will be meaningless. And you're going to waste everybody's time, including yours. So always make sure that you have the data is accurate and complete, and if possible, corroborate the data through an independent source or maybe tied to the general ledger. The right set of data and the right data mining approach doesn't always come the first time. Frequently takes 2, 3, or even more dry runs before achieving some meaningful results. But once everything is designed with IDEA, you can run it as many times as you want. You just feed the different data and everything is created for you. And it's a learning cycle. I mean, it's always a learning cycle. IDEA helps us learn about the business, and we learn how to best use IDEA from the business. So this is an example from one of the results, the early results of the unmatched credit card transaction tests. What I mean by unmatched credit card transactions, so these are transactions that were processed on corporate credit cards. However, they weren't imported in the T&E application. So we can see that there are big amount of transactions, and also we see that some of the employees have made personal payments, some of the employees have delinquency fees because either they haven't made a payment, they haven't submitted the expense reports. And we have Tina, which has fairly high amount of unmatched credit card transactions. I think she's the second one. And she doesn't have a delinquency fee. So we looked, and actually Tina ranked fairly high on our risk dashboard. So we decided to look a little deeper into Tina's expense reports, and we found actually that, and we discovered that she has found a very clever way to funnel her personal purchases through the T&E reimbursement process. But that wasn't, I mean, without knowing IDEA, without knowing our business, we couldn't have done this discovery. So that's why it's always continuous learning cycle. And that's, I think, the last polling question.
I think we have one more polling question at the end, but this is going to go ahead and launch the poll. The question is, what is your go-to analytics tool? Do you use IDEA? Do you use ACL, Active Data, Excel, or another tool? Again, I'm going to give you about 30, 40 seconds to respond. We need to respond to 3 of the polling questions, and I'll let y'all get to that. Okay, I'm going to leave it for another 5 seconds. All right, thank you.
Okay, so
questions. We actually received a couple of questions. I'm going to, again, just put the out there. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the question box. We're gonna ask any questions that pertain to what Bistro was discussing, and then we'll go into Scott's presentation, and then if we have any questions for both, just Scott, just Bistro at the end, you can also ask them at that time. So one of our first questions is, Bistro, you talked about not sampling anymore. Did you use initial sampling to get comfortable with the integrity of the data that you were testing?
So first I have to make sure that the data is complete. So first of all, I'm always trying to run my reports. We are good in getting read-on access or just report-only access for most of our applications. So I'm trying to run my own reports, trying to get the fields I need, and then I tie everything to the GL. And yes, during the initial stage, I review a couple of transactions just to make sure that what I'm seeing is properly reflected in the GL. So yes, I tie in total the data, and then I randomly select maybe 10 to 20 transactions just to make sure that they're properly recorded and I have the entire information for the transaction.
Thank you. Our next question is, did you and your team develop these tests internally? And then it's kind of a multi-part question. Did you develop the tests internally? Did you receive any assistance from IDEA? And then also, how long did it take to develop the audit process?
So we designed the tests and IDEA helped us. So we designed the tests and I could execute the tests, but IDEA automation team helped us automate the tests. So they helped us develop the scripts and they helped us with some of the tests, and they were very helpful, and it was, iterative process. We went back and forth like a couple of times because some of the tests that we initially thought may be good didn't produce the right results, so we had to go back and adjust them. So the whole process, I would say, probably took maybe 2 months.
Okay.
It was, but then again, we are a very small team. So for the record, we are like 4 people. At that time, we were like 2 people. So that's why it takes longer because we didn't have the bandwidth.
Yes.
But the IDEA team, actually, automation help desk, they were very helpful. And they always phone call away, and they always, they knew the answers. Or even if they didn't know the answer right away, they would get back to me. They were very good. I like working with them.
Thank you for the plug. We appreciate it. Since going to IDEA, have you seen ROI from fraud to cover the cost of the tool?
Yes, we identified actually multiple fraudulent disbursements, and we received some recoveries. Now, I don't really track how much, but I'm pretty sure that we paid for the IDEA costs in the license. Yeah, I think we paid off that one.
Thank you. Can you give some additional examples of tests that you added to your risk funnel?
Now, they're different. Depends on the area that we are auditing. So I think the ones that are in the presentation are the fraud related. And the other ones are more statistical. So they were to look more for outliers like average spend per employee per category, or maybe average spend per employee per function, because we have different functions with different spending patterns. So they were mostly statistical based, and we are using them just to make sure, like to have a baseline, and from that baseline we were using the fraud tests to target specific reimbursements or specific employees who are outliers and who are fitting into the fraud tests.
Thank you. After narrowing down your population, how many samples were selected for substantial testing?
So everybody was looked, and as maybe I didn't make it clear, so we looked at everyone at the bottom of the funnel, but we didn't look at all of their expenses. We looked at specific category of expenses. So with IDEA, when we run the tests, we received like a transactions. And we, like for duplicate tests, we received like, we probably have like hundreds of transactions that are like duplicates with each other, maybe 2 duplicates, maybe 3 duplicates. So we're going to look at that expense report. So we're going to get the expense reports, and we're going to look only for these specific transactions that were results of the tests. For instance, if the expense reports had like 50 line items, however, only 5 of these were selected in the tests, then we're going to look only at these 6 expense lines. We're not going to look at the 50 lines. So, I mean, we looked at the 100% of the risk-based population, but for a specific reason. We didn't examine all of their expense reports.
Thank you. And I'm going to do one more question now, and then we'll jump to Scott. And then again, if we have time at the end, we'll try and come back and get to the rest of these. Do you complete a separate accounts payable cross-check to look at all payments, including expense T&E reimbursements, are being reviewed to ensure that items are being sent around the T&E system? I might need to repeat that. Did you complete a separate accounts payable cross-check to look at all the payments being paid, including expenses, to make sure that you weren't, did you just check with accounts payable while you were also doing your T&E audit? I think is what he's trying to ask.
So at that time, we had, I mean, we did it on a high level because we had like cash only and then credit card, which were like the cash was processed through the payroll and the credit card was directly paid to the credit card company. So, and then we have a specific code for employees that like in our AP master file. So we did a high level just to see how much was the spend, like how many payments we processed through AP to employees, and it wasn't big amount. So we just did it on a high level. We didn't develop any particular tests because our process wasn't going through AP.
Thank you. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and type them in. We can get to them after we move over to Scott, who I am now going to make our presenter. Hello, Scott. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing good, and thank you for joining us and showing us a little bit about the different features in IDEA.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate everybody giving me a few minutes to give you a really high-level, quick overview of IDEA, and then show a couple. I know I don't have much time here, so we're going to make it fast. I'm going to show you a couple of different methods to look for duplicate data. One of them is just a straight duplicate analysis, and I've chosen a file that is a batch processed file. And I do want to, I can have Bistra verify this for me. Don't get caught up on the data that I'm showing you, because as she can attest, once that information is pulled into IDEA, we don't care what the data is, where it's from, or how it was generated. As long as it's imported into IDEA and reconciled, it's just letters and numbers. So you get to decide what you're going to do with the data, no matter what type of data it is: AR, AP, fixed asset, inventory, T&E, you name it. It's just data. So in here, I have a very simple file. And before I get started, I'm going to show you a very high level, very quick overview of the IDEA interface. What you'll see is it looks a heck of a lot like one of the productivity tools that you're probably using. There's a ribbon across the top. It makes it very easy to navigate. You just click on that home tab right there, and you're going to create yourself a project. And IDEA is going to want you to work in a specific project, and we call it a library. Down here in the lower left-hand corner, there's a File Explorer that'll display the data that you've imported. And by the way, it's a read-only copy of the data, so you have a starting point in time. You internal auditors and data analysts will love that. Read-only copy of the data. You're not working on your live source data. And then there's a Library tab. The library keeps track of all of the cool stuff that you do after you create that project. You got those source files, Excel spreadsheets, PDFs, text documents, you name it. You're going to right-click and import or copy that source data into your source files folder inside of your project, which is always displayed right down here on the lower left-hand corner of your screen. So the project that I have created for this particular engagement is called 1-demo. That's my current project library. I have copied a bunch of source files into this project to use to do my analysis. If I expand that out, you can see I've got a ton of different types of data. And IDEA is super flexible on being able to import that data. And like I said, we don't care where it came from. There's PDFs, there's delimited files, there's Excel spreadsheets, access databases, you name it. We can import that data into IDEA and use it as our source to accomplish the engagement that we're after. All right, you can see in here, I've got this one right here. It's called an aging file. I'm going to use that to show you how to import PDF data because it's kind of ugly. And PDF files come in two forms. There's a scanned document, which you're not going to be able to import until you do an OCR operation on it. Something has to read the file. And then there's a saved directly to a PDF, which actually has data inside of the document that we can pull out and make into a database that you can use for analysis. And then, of course, your Excel spreadsheets, they're a piece of cake. They're already formatted. You're just going to use a wizard to import those into IDEA. I've imported this paid file. I'm going to import another simple Excel spreadsheet just to show you how that works. Click back over on File Explorer. The way that you'll get your data into IDEA, go in the Home tab, click on the Desktop button, and choose the type of file that you want to import. Excel spreadsheet, it's looking already by default in my source files folder of my project. Click on the little button right there and it opens up the source files folder, lets you choose how you want to, not how, but what you want to import. I'll choose a payments file, click open. When I hit next, Excel's already formatted. The columns already have a type and a length and a width and all that kind of good stuff. So it knows that that's a character column, that's a dollar amount, whatnot. Check the box, names your columns. Check that right there and it cleans up numbers. If you got a blank cell in your Excel spreadsheet that's in a number column, this is going to put a 0 in it for you. And then it's just literally going to name it after your workbook and your worksheet and import a read-only copy of that Excel data into IDEA. So now you're not connected to that source anymore. You just have a copy of it that you can start doing your work. All right. So using this paid file, I'm going to close the payments out. I'm going to double click on it and show you the structure of the file. This is what it was when it was in Excel. Just so double click anywhere you want and it opens up this little dialog box that says, I had these columns and these types with these particular parameters or descriptions about the particular data sets. Vendor information, PO information, invoice information, check information. So based on seeing the structure, analysts will use this to devise their plan to analyze the data in whatever method that they're going to use. I'm going to do two different duplicate detections on this particular set of data. The first one is I want to see if this vendor got paid on two different batches or multiple batches. And the second test I'm going to do is called fuzzy analysis. It's fuzzy duplicate analysis. I want to see if this vendor address is duplicated in my data set, but maybe it's similar but not exact. Could indicate somebody trying to put a ghost vendor or game the system in some manner. And there's what's called Levenstein calculations to allow you to be very flexible and as well as specific on how you analyze the data. So close that guy back out. And then you're going to jump right over to this analysis tab. Over here on the analysis tab, all of the unit analysis pieces reside. All the stuff that Bistra's doing. She's taking small pieces, stacking it on top of each other, and breaking a very complex problem down into a bunch of small steps that are easy to handle, okay? So there's a bunch of sampling stuff we can do right here. We can join disparate data sets and make a more comprehensive data set out of it, summarizing, stratifying, aging, pivot tables. Some people still like to use pivot tables. Gap detections. Benford's Law is in there. It's a very powerful tool to be able to look for fraud in data sets and doing a numerical analysis. It's all built in, a lot of tests. And then, of course, the duplicate key detection, exclusion, and fuzzy duplicate key analysis. So as with most every test that you run in IDEA, import your data, go to the Analysis tab, choose the test that you want to run, and IDEA is going to provide you with a series of dialog boxes. You don't have to know a whole lot of coding in IDEA. You don't have to be a scripter or a programmer. You have to know your job. And all of you guys out there, you know the plan. I go from step 1 to step 2, step 3, all the way step whatever to get to the end result. You're just going to use dialog boxes and do the same process. I want to output duplicate records based on a duplicate key, and I want to choose the key that I'm going to look for duplicates. Okay, so let's do one other step just to kind of provide a little bit of pre-work. If I have a payment file or any other file that may have duplicate data inside it, one of the things that I like to do is a simple summarization of the data. I want to roll all of this information up. If it's an invoice number, it may have multiple line items. That vendor may be paid this invoice and have 4 or 5 different purchases on one invoice. So let's stack all of it up into a single document, a single line inside of IDEA. So we're going to choose the vendor number, the invoice number, and you just choose these from the drop-down, very simple, and you can choose up to 8 items to roll it up onto a very, very specific set of information. Invoice date, invoice amount, and I missed one there. Oh, the batch. So if those 5 items are consistent on multiple lines within my data set, I want it to add up the dollar value for me. I can have it give me the minimum, the maximum, average, variance, and other data also. And I like big, long, descriptive names when I create my result set over in my File Explorer. So sum by vendor number and invoice detail. All I got to do next is say, include all of the items across the whole record set. I want all of the detail. And click OK. So there we go. That quickly, IDEA ran and it looked for these 5 values, and if they were duplicated, it put it onto a single line. And IDEA always, when you do a summarization, it gives you a drill down or an action list item that you can drill on to get further detail. If you double click and double click again, you see there's multiple line items. If you click on that blue number 2 right there, it's going to drill down to the original data set and show you the detail. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is, with my summarized data set, I'm going to look for duplicates to see if 1, 2, 3, 4 items happened on more than one batch. So if that vendor got paid on that invoice number, on that date, that amount, on 2 different batches, that's a potential red flag that I need to look at. So let's dive in. Analysis tab, duplicate detection. Dialog boxes. Answer the questions on the dialog box. What are the key? Well, we want to know if those 4 items happened. So again, define the duplicate. Vendor number, invoice date, invoice amount, and just choose them from the drop-down boxes and define the key. So now my key is defined. All of the fields will be displayed across the whole piece of information, the whole data set, and I want to give this new file another name because I'm creating a pathway over here that can be used, like Beaster said, the professional services team helped her script the work to make it repeatable. And they can do this by looking at the progression from import to summarization to duplicate analysis. So this is going to be duplicate by batch number. When I click OK, IDEA drills down, and sure enough, vendor number same, invoice number same, invoice date same, invoice amount, 2 different batches. Now I have a pathway. I can go back and start trying to see if this is in fact something that shouldn't have happened. All right, so that's the first test that we're going to do. Very common test. Most of the clients and IDEA users that I talk to and I help will want to do some sort of duplicate analysis. It doesn't matter if it's invoices, if it's vendors, it could be addresses. And one of the most common things on addresses are misspelled, transposed, shortcutted stuff like AVE instead of spelling out the word avenue. There's a full facility built into IDEA to be able to do that too. Still another duplicate detection. If I look over here in my file, remember there is a vendor address. In a payment file, completely logical to have one vendor with multiple line items, so I want to see if that's in here more than one time, that more than one time, that more than one time, and if it's consistent, okay? So over here on the duplicates, we're going to choose fuzzy duplicate key detection. And I want to output the fuzzy matches and allow records to be in multiple groups. So if that address is really similar to that address, it needs to be in both places so I can look at it with my eyes and make a determination if it's valid or not. Again, check the box and define the key. With fuzzy duplicate analysis, what you're going to see is you can use up to 3 character fields, okay? So I can choose the vendor number, I can choose the vendor address and the vendor city, add them as a key. It's going to make a key value out of all 3 and then interrogate the data set based on that value. I'm going to use, for simplicity, vendor address. Click OK and give it a name. Fuzzy duplicate analysis by address. What I want to do is I want a starting point. So I'm going to take my slider and drop it way down here to 70%. That means I'm not being super specific. It can be close and still be considered a duplicate. If I bring it way up here to 99, it's got to be almost exact before it kicks it out. And the help is fantastic. Okay, context sensitive. So at a 70% Levenstein interrogation of the data, I'm going to look for vendor addresses and rename the file fuzzy duplicate by address. When I click OK, what it did was it chose the vendor address, made a key out of it, and it summarized, gave me every unique value in the data set and told me in group number 1, record number 4 is an exact match, 100% match. What we want to know is where it's close but not exact. So a quick way to do that in IDEA is put your mouse on the column you're interested in. This is my Levenstein factor or my similarity factor. Right click on it and say, using the shortcut, display all the records where that similarity degree is not, does not equal 100%. When you click OK, you can see I've got 2 groups that have groups and addresses that are similar. The second group, group number 8, PO Box 5785, has one address in here, P.O-box. Now these are the type of anomalies that the fuzzy duplicate detection is going to allow you to drill down onto very quickly. Okay, is this a honest mistake? Is this somebody, you know what, somebody turned the control off so they could get out of work on Friday early? Or is somebody trying to put a ghost vendor in there and write checks to themselves? So again, second type of fuzzy analysis, very valid, and I get asked to do this all the time, and there's multiple ways to do it inside of IDEA. And you can see again, it built a trail where I could have this reproducible. I can make a script out of it and have it run every time with one click, literally. Okay. So Lindsay, did you say there's one more polling question? This is probably a good time to have it. I'm going to delve into PDF imports next.
Yes, there is one final poll question. I'm going to go ahead and launch that. It says, how frequently are T&E expenses audited within your organization? more than once a year, less than once a year, never, unknown. Again, you needed to have responded to 3 of the 4 polling questions in order to receive CPE credit. So if you missed one, now is the chance to make up for it. I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to respond, and then I will let Scott finish his presentation. Going to give another 5 seconds. All right, Scott, go ahead.
Okay. Now this is another subject, again, that I get all the time. Even as robust as the data ERP systems, relational databases, whatnot are, people still get data delivered to them in PDFs. Okay, it's a great tool for transporting of data. It's a terrible tool for being able to analyze the data, because in its viewer, it's kind of like a picture of the data. And that doesn't do me much good, because I need to get rid of all those headers and the roll-ups and the subtotals and this, that, and the other, and put it into a database form. IDEA has a very, very powerful built-in utility on the desktop icon. It's called Report Reader, and it allows you to pull in PDF reports that are actually PDF documents, not scans, as well as printed documents like PRN or text or delimited or whatnot. You can define the data and take it out of its, I think the technical term is its ugly form, and put it into a usable format that you can actually do some analysis on. Again, by clicking the button, choosing Report Reader, if I go down here to my file name, it's looking in the source files folder by default. I click the button, it shows me the types of files that I can import using the Report Reader. Okay, I've got this one right here. I've got several examples. This one's ugly. This one's real simple. Actually, this one's very ugly. And I'm choosing this one just to show you how you can take a messy PDF and turn it into usable data. So choose the file you want to import, click open. There's a spot for a template. Okay, I'm going to go for the first couple of steps and show you how to apply the template that I have sitting in my library down here, so you can automate that work. You do it once and then use the template to import the data every time. So leave it blank in order to start creating your template. Hit next. And this is a pretty good file, pretty good size file. It's several hundred pages actually. And we have clients that come at us with 10, 20, 30 page PDFs, not uncommon. But we also have larger clients that have hundreds of thousands of line items of data, which that PDF could be several hundred, if not many hundred pages of data. That's the issue with PDFs. There's a lot of baggage involved with them. You have to take all of that PDF layer off the top and expose the data underneath, where the report reader can actually start looking at it. So there's a representation of this PDF, and I'm going to kind of widen it out, make it as big as I can, and define the data. Now, there's header information, there's customer information, and a document. And then if you scroll down a little bit, I can see some customers have multiple documents. So I need to take that into account. IDEA has the ability to take lines as well as blocks of data and turning it into almost like a spreadsheet. And here's how you're going to do it. So unlike a PDF where you start at the top and you read down and you get to the first subsection and you read down, you get to subtotals, and you go to another subsection and you get to subtotals. PDF imports, you want to start at the most detailed level. Disregard headers, disregard subtotal values, go for the detail or the transaction. Put your mouse on it, left click, drag across the screen. When you release the button, it's going to ask that you create a layer of data. Click yes, and it takes a snapshot of that row, puts it up here, and now you get to define the pattern on the row. And if you define it properly, you're going to capture only rows that look exactly like that data throughout your report and disallow everything that you're not interested in. Okay, so I can put my mouse right here and say there's a slash by the date. Okay, but if I scroll down, sometimes there are single digits, sometimes there are double digit dates. So we're not sure if that's going to do it for us. So just to make sure, I'm going to use some global, what's called traps, to capture the data. Right here, my document number is always numeric, unless there happens to be an alpha at the end. So I'm going to put my mouse on top of the document number and click the numeric trap a couple times. Now between these two items, a bunch of numbers right here and a slash separating the month from the day, I should have captured everything in the document. And the way that you do that is you scroll down. If you scroll down, you should be able to catch the gist of if the data is being captured or not. But there's a better way within IDEA to be able to verify that. Now that you've got your data identified, put your mouse in here, left click, drag, and name your columns. Okay, I'm going to name this one my document number. I don't want it to be numeric, just in case. I want it to be a character. And then I'm going to go and capture my next piece of data. And we're going to give that a name. This is the type. And then you're going to go across. And because I don't know if my dates are consistent, I like to capture a little bit extra. I'll call it my date, but I'm going to leave it as a character. Okay, and then IDEA is going to catch whether that values move around a little bit. And then you would literally go across the document, pick up. The next one is the amount. It's numeric 2 decimal places, already captured that. And I would go across the screen. Continue capturing. Net 30, write-offs, current, all of the data across, 3160, 91, all across the screen. Once you've done that, you save your layer and you get to preview it to make sure that IDEA is capturing it correctly. And this is literally what it's going to do. It's going to turn that ugly data into a spreadsheet. Okay, so now we're getting close. Next thing we need to do very quickly, on top of each one of the documents, there's customer related information. Now this is a very powerful tool. Left click, drag down, and you're going to capture data from a whole block of data. Create another layer, and since the hash mark is right there beside this row, it's using that row to key for the traps within the data set. So right there is a semicolon. Now you notice it highlighted a whole block of data. If you scroll down, all my customer information is now captured. So within that block, I can grab anything that I want. I can say, I want my customer, left click and drag. Character. And I want it to repeat until if there's multiple documents. Left click and drag. This is customer name. And I want it to repeat. And I would continue getting data within the particular block. And repeat. Okay, so now let's save this layer. I would go and get everything else that I want, save the layer, and preview it one more time. So now all of my data across the screen is associated, and there, right there, where it had multiple documents, I captured it twice. Down here, there's multiple documents, captured multiple documents. So we are good to go. Now, the powerful thing about this is once you get it all dialed in, you're going to save the template. Okay, because when you save the template, it knows the pattern, and then all you have to do is open the template. There's my aging. I click open, and IDEA applies my work right over the top. I get to check it to see if it looks good. Close it, and the last step is literally import that guy into IDEA. Proceed with the import. Give it a name. Click finish, and now I've just imported several hundred pages of PDF that's all pre-formatted, very pretty, nice and easy to read, into a really simple spreadsheet view that's easy to analyze. Okay, so that's the problem that you're going to run into, is most PDFs are not simple. You have to take them apart and make them usable. With Ideas Report Reader, it's extremely simple. And again, help desk, we call it our 20-minute rule. If you're having trouble with PDFs, give them a call. They'll get online with you and walk you through the process of getting your data untangled so you can make a database out of it. And that's it. That's the two things, actually three things, that I wanted to show today using IDEA. And I'm going to open it up for questions if that's in Lindsay's game plan.
Yes, I think we have a little bit of time for one or two questions. Thank you for showing us everything, Scott. The one of the questions that we received has to do with getting data from another software tool. So it's if you download data from the other software in Excel, but then the document has multiple files with blank rows between the different rows of actual data. How does IDEA work with those types of documents?
That's a cool thing, because basically it's a combination of the two things that I've just showed. Okay, so if a classic example is a QuickBooks dump of data into a general ledger. I mean, it's all highly formatted. There's blanks. It's all over the place. So what you do there is import that data. Just go to the desktop, click Excel, import, or what have you, and import it raw, just exactly like it is. Don't try to read it. Don't try to manipulate it, anything. And it's going to make a very raw import of the data. Then I would immediately export that to a delimited file. Okay, when it's exported into a delimited file, it's going to make an equally ugly looking file just like that PDF that I just imported, and then you would go right back and import it using the report reader, because then, since it was in Excel, the data is going to be very, very orderly. The columns are going to be in columns. The rows are going to be in rows. They're going to be lined up properly. I can use the report reader to pick out only the pieces that I'm interested in, make a template out of it, and then apply the template every time I have that issue.
Thank you, Scott. We are pretty much out of time. I also wanted to thank Bistra again for joining us and sharing with us. If we did not get to your question, I will send those around to either our help desk or to Bistra and see if we can get an answer for you that we can send to you via email. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly, marketing@automation.com, or you can email Scott or Bistra. Just let us know. We can help you out. We hope you enjoyed the webcast and learned a lot, and have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.